Richard D. James, better known as Aphex Twin, is one of the most prestigious electronic musicians of recent memory. With his first release in 1991, his studio albums have explored many genres like ambient techno, traditional ambient, acid, drill and bass, and even pioneering breakcore. By 2001, he had received immense amounts of critical praise and respect on the underground circuit by the turn of the millennium, but past his releases under numerous different monikers, countless EPs, and many interviews in Music Lads mags, Aphex became radio silent as 2000 rolled around. After his singles Come to Daddy and Window Licker in the years prior actually charted and brought him inadvertent national recognition, behind the scenes, Richard was at a crossroads. Not only was he one release away from completing his contract with Warp Records, but he also wanted to start a joint label with fellow IDM artist Squarepusher, and he also apparently lost an MP3 player on a plane containing around 200 tracks. Then, tickets went on sale.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to turn off all your mobile phones, and there's no smoking in the auditorium. Thank you.
The 2nd of August, 2001, music fans gathered in the London Planetarium to hear the first ever performance of tracks from a new album. On this night, the audience could not have predicted the opening song to be this. This is Chimwethek, meaning electronic machine in Cornish. The music is unlike anything Richard had ever composed before. This track has an adventurous folk vibe to it that's amplified by this twangy sound, similar to that coming from a gamelan, and it's pleasant on the ears. But despite this genre of music, this is only one side to this double album, which isn't exactly defined by its 2-disc length. Armed with Player Pro and a Disclavia computer-controlled piano, he would craft drukQs, finally releasing in October 2001. It's weird, it's brilliant, borderline cyberpunk, and this is an ode to it. As the drums bounce around, the track launches straight into these abstract yet intense breakbeats. Ford Husband, meaning noisy boat in Cornish, starts forming a melody under these glitchy drums that kind of reminds me of an actually listenable Venetian snares beat, and this culminates in my favourite moment from the whole album. Yes, now. Your ears get filled with these layering synths louder than any other element of the track. The production is insane. These balls to the wall moments reoccur across this album as a way to further prove Richard's remarkable ability to compose. And the track concludes the way it started, with the bouncing drums. In 2017, when Aphex Twin's Warp store was updated and relaunched, a bonus video was uploaded to a Vimeo account showcasing the making of Ford Husband. Not only does it showcase a version of the song without any drums, Daft Punk take notes, but it shows the intricate design of the track in the Player Pro software. The double album isn't just in the discs, rather conceptually, as the next track is... With a horrifically hard to pronounce name, it's very eerie. I mean, listen to those muted notes and metal clanging and make your own judgment.
I use screws and nails and bits of rubber. I've made lots of little things so that you can change the harmonics of the strings. When I bought this piano, because it was really expensive, I thought I'm going to break it straight away if I started to take it apart. So for 1 year, I just did very normal piano tracks, and then after 1 year, I started to take it apart.
In an interview, Richard directly named Eric Satie and John Cage as inspirations for the piano pieces, which further on makes more sense. What a calming interlude into... Ah yes, whipping sounds and out-of-beat drums. These howling instruments and synths band together to form this messy yet mad track. You can hear a repeating sample of someone saying, as this artificially pleasant melody gets chopped and beaten apart by the drums. When you find any sense of rhythm, the rug gets immediately pulled from under you and resets, even at one point substituting everything for a traditional analog melody that gets ripped away by the drum loop. As the track gets louder and louder and culminates in the climax, it mixes with this white noise feedback, and eventually the whole track collapses and fades. Also, side note, this track was also featured in my favourite film of all time, Children of Men, with added screaming of course, just to make it that little bit more enjoyable. And also Michael Caine.
A little Zen music won't bother you then, will it?
Meaning squeezed tightly in Cornish, it sounds like an interruption to normality, yet its slow tempo strikes that balance of unease and comfort like an uncalled for hug. While not either heartbreaking or dramatic, it does manage to strike a balance that's easy on the ears and just plain nice. In fact, the piano used for tracks like this can be seen on the cover art and in the liner notes rather than the funny grinning face guy, and for good reason. The tone of this album compared to Rich's other work just doesn't fit the standard vibe, and it's not straight beats or straight ambient. And what a contrast to the previous track. It's almost like you're submerged underwater. These pounding, ominous drums sound like something out of the deeper cuts of Selected Ambient Works Volume 2. It's very bleak. It sounds like a heartbeat that pulsates across the left and right channel.
People are getting more used to listening to weird shit. More and more people listen to noise music. More inharmonic sounds are being accepted. It's lush, I reckon.
It's an ambient that chills, even more when you translate the title Gweli Mernans from Cornish to English. Deathbed. The track titles are like that because Richard was born in Ireland to Welsh parents but spent the majority of his early life in Cornwall. Despite the Celtic language of Cornish becoming borderline extinct due to his last native speaker dying in 1777, the use of the dialect within many of the track names can be seen as a sort of tribute to his roots. It's like elevator music. Bubba de Encore is a 2-minute loop of a 16-second beat, consisting of a groovy, vintage, calming melody with frequent claps and cowbells. It's like Whiplash. Did the last track even happen? It's a common debate amongst whether the name of the album is pronounced either drukQs or drukQs, which, seeing some of the stuff here, the latter wouldn't surprise me. In its own words, drukQs is just a random word with no meaning. In fact, despite many of the tracks he's made in the past, he stated in 1997 that he rarely makes music under the influence of drugs or alcohol, apart from that one collab album with Music. Going back to this track, it's a nice and chill, but totally inappropriate lead into. Hailed as one of Aphex's best, and one of the best on this LP, it's what got the album a parental advisory sticker in some places. The song is so detailed, mind-bending and complex, with the 170 BPM drums and the buzz of the background synths. It's truly amazing, and after about 3 minutes of pure drum and bass, acid, drill and bass, etc., you'll hear Square Pusher, another IDM artist, say this.
Come on, you cunt, let's have some Aphex acid!
With over 160 million streams, this is by far Richard's most known track, for good reason, as it's one of the most beautiful piano pieces on the album, and it really sticks out because it sounds almost too perfect. This track is also probably best known for its use in films like Four Lions and Marie Antoinette. For the former, it was actually specially re-recorded, as Chris Morris and Aphex are fans of each other, as its purpose was to provide a sort of melancholia coda at the end of the film. For the latter, it was specially chosen as part of the film's approach to use a more modern soundtrack than traditional classical pieces. And if you primarily listen to rap, there's one place where you've definitely heard this before.
Let's play the game. I love you.
Also, Kanye stole the sample, or something, I don't know. It's modern, yet classical, and surprisingly, it fits neatly around every other track on this album. Right, brace yourself. 8 minutes, 200 BPM, meticulous programming, and also a monkey playing the drums. Thanks, Chris. This track is anything but peaceful, as it hits you full force immediately with ultra fast percussion as the mix overwhelms with its sheer volume. Named after two mountains, one in France, one in Cornwall, I wouldn't blame you if you found this hard to endure. I mean, it can go from loud kicks and snares to almost ambient with this voice sample of Richard's girlfriend's younger sister that's reminiscent of Crystal from Saw 85 to 92. The climax of the 8-minute long track is goosebumps inducing as the drums chop up, cut in and out, and create audio that's practically unlistenable. It feels like you're being shaken around with this tremolo. After that, the control chaos simply cuts off and goes away, leaving you around 7 seconds of silence to process what just happened, standard with almost every other track. When you listen to it in conjunction with the Chris Cunningham directed short film Monkey Drummer, it just makes the experience even more mind-boggling. And yes, the hi-hat is played by his phallus. Well, it's certainly not a music track. In the simplest way, I would describe it as experimental audio design. In simple terms, it's probably the worst thing to play at a party. This is the average thing you'll hear in Greg 2, meaning arch in Cornish, with the track including people screaming and crying.
I start hearing crying and babies crying and screaming.
And this metallic scraping, it's twisted ASMR. It's just placed in the middle of disc 1 and then it fades out like nothing happened. The presence of this track at all sort of reflects Aphex's attitude to music publishing in 2001.
I buy a CD, put it on the computer, and just take the tracks I want anyway.
This track combines these pounding drums with this groovy bass line. It runs for just over a minute, and the most notable change is when the main melody drops out, leaving a head-bopping tune in its place. An 8-second interlude and it's still weird. That's an accepted translation. Nobody even knows what it says. The deep parts of Aphex's discography have bizarre things like these, which can't properly be described, whether it ranges from harsh noise or this.
Yes, I could smell an awful lot of shit there.
And a lot of feces as well.
There's lots of shit smothered on the microphone, I think.
It sounds virtually identical to Jimwaythek, yet, in my opinion, nicer. Meaning she shed a flood of tears in Cornish. It's one of the more classical influenced piano compositions on the record. Side note, when you just focus on just the piano side on this album, you can evidently see how it inspired C418 to compose the Minecraft soundtrack, which is also heavily piano-based ambient. This is followed by... However this is spelled, it can be translated into consistent echo, and it has an aesthetic that feels like a disorienting mood swing. In the middle of these breakbeats and piano tracks, you can hear these broken chords just put you down. Right, now... Hey, it's me, Guy in the profile picture. Before the next side starts, this video is sponsored by you. Since this video is bound to be copyright claimed due to me essentially playing the whole album, I've enabled YouTube memberships. I must stress, it's optional, of course, and if you want to pay either £2 or £5, you can get certain perks like your name at the end of the video. I mean, look at this picture. This is where I'm currently recording. Okay, shilling over. Let's carry on. If I could pick any song that encapsulates energy, it would be this one. Not only with the, along with these Welsh, hence the name, and nonsensical vocal samples. The track eventually evolves into the drum and bass version of death metal, as the drums remain persistent throughout the entirety of the track over the overwhelming distortion. It's weird because none of the samples in this and any other track sound out of place. It seems neatly threaded in that makes it feel complete, somehow. Surely the second half of the album won't have an incredibly depressing trilogy. Sounds that can be linked to church bells echo in an artificially large room doused in reverb. It provokes this nostalgic emotion, but it feels lonely at the same time. And the final note is just so pleasant to hear.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
A voicemail message from Richard's parents, Lorna and Derek, celebrating his birthday in 1999. After the Black Box EP, this track is incredibly depressing when you learn that both of his parents have now passed away.
Happy birthday, my little son.
It's a touching tribute to them, which honestly warms my heart and makes me feel grateful that I still have a family that love and support me, similar to how Richards did to him. This track is composed with a harmonium, providing this very heavy sound with a serene atmosphere. It's almost ethereal, with these little creaks and the echo in the background. It feels like a low point, a time of reflection and acceptance, especially due to his improvised feel. An alternative name for this is pentiharmonium, meaning paint harmony, and it's literally scribbled out on the track list. Right, I'm not going to avoid it. You might have actually heard this track before, as it's become a common usage on sad boy core edits on TikTok that usually talk about society and that. It can either be the original or slowed down, which kind of eliminates the whole feeling of the track, but some of the TikToks are actually funny when it's used ironically.
This is what a rage surge looks like.
From the first beat, you can already tell shit's going down. It sounds like something Richard would make for I Care Because You Do if he wasn't using analog technology back then, because the beats are fast as usual, but the composition of the synths in the background are fantastic. In one word, it's trippy. It's not something you'd want to hear on LSD or something due to its funky, dreamlike texture, and the programming is overshadowed by this vocal sample. That repeats for 3 more minutes before the track fades out. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to explain this. It sounds like a mixture of a cave and factory, where the prepared piano now sounds like percussion, and its incredibly simple composition is focused on rhythm. It's very ominous, and for what? It's a simple but disorienting piece sonically, but the name is interesting. Father was named like that because apparently Richard's dad, Derek, just overheard and liked this piece, so the name Father was given. He was previously heard on the Lorna Derek voicemail from earlier, and also the track 4 from the Richard D. James album. As I said before, Richard's dad died in 2020, and during a SoundCloud dump in the same year, the song QU1 was included. On its own, it's an incredible ambient piece that wouldn't sound out of place in any sort of afterlife. It's full of grief, but it's not inherently sad, more reflective and comforting. Additionally, when you press download on the song and you open the properties of the MP3 file, a note reads, "See you on the other side, Dad." My dad was so kind. Always noticed if there was someone in the room who maybe wasn't as happy as everyone else, whereas others might be drawn to the main energy of a room or a party. He loved that too, but if there was someone who needed cheering up or help, he was always there. He was so clever but never ever showed off or even told people about the things he'd achieved. My family and I were always discovering things he'd done, sometimes years later, and we're like, what the fuck? He was very hard-working and loved life, unbelievably positive even in the shittiest of situations. He also never talked about his feelings, but wasn't at all repressed, and he never liked it if any of us were ever talking about someone behind their back. He loved reading and read constantly, and had a silly fun side to him which I really loved. He was also telling the same stories over and over again, just like me. I get that from him. He was a ridiculously perfect dad. It's easy to bop your head to, and the overall sound is trembly as the noise is continuously manipulated under this sample. On the surface, the instrumentation might seem simple with the drum machine in question and the synths, but over time it generates excitement that's only emphasised by the penultimate sample.
Decent bitch.
It's mind-blowing considering how ahead of its time this actually is, being made in 2001 or even earlier. Taking Control is a mammoth of a track, over 7 minutes, and it's made all the better for it, especially as it gets quieter and quieter. It's one of my personal favourites. It's a distant memory. These soft piano notes radiate peacefully in your ears and effectively soothes after that last track. But it still has this off vibe with the added context that it isn't a human playing it, or for some it may amplify that soothing feeling, swimming in the copious amounts of reverb.
In your memory, what is piano associated with most directly?
Emotion.
If I describe drukQs in another way, it has a feeling as if it's collecting things which got separated or lost back together, or even mourning. How do you think about this impression?
Yes, it's true. Ruglan Holland feels much more mechanical and very minimalistic due to the spaced out notes and pops. It's short and sweet, and this album would be worse off without it. The only track on this album with a producer tag. And I spent way too long thinking of what to say, but the music itself is just something you have to hear to believe. The music transforms into a cacophony of computerized beeps and boops, fast yet punctual drum machines, and it all results in a carefully orchestrated drum and bass song that can be actually classified as one of the most normal on this LP. Now, I can't talk about this track without mentioning this. Rubber Johnny, a short film made in 2005 by Chris Cunningham, who also directed videos for Aphex, and Bjork, and Squarepusher, and Ortega. And Porter said, I think you get the point with that. Looking at the content itself, it's oddly beautiful. The film uses 237 as a backing track, and it's the perfect match. These ahead of its time visuals that flash and distort creates a fever nightmare, but it's also brilliant experimental art. Zygomatic is pretty much the peak of this LP in terms of how Richard pulls out all the stops to craft exhilarating acid, which I honestly find hard to describe. It's proudly digital, with the programming and various elements, including the melody, where everything just clicks into the right place, even if a different sound pops up every about 10 seconds. After 7 chaotic minutes, everything breaks down, leaving us with the final part. This outro beat switch is amazing. As the final electronic beat-based song on the album, it certainly brings the curtain down of a frantic, maniacal, alternative side to this project neatly and blissfully. Cap it off with one final message from Richard, a sort of fourth wall break.
Thank you for your attention. Bye.
Ready to be unnerved again? A unique piano track. Due to the modification of the sounds that almost sound twangy and the reverb, the lower notes start sounding like a steady drum loop, like mallet percussion in a way. The overall melody is lush, but creepy. More tracks like this would be released 14 years later on the computer-controlled Acoustic Instruments Part 2 EP, said that in one breath, which Richard considered a companion piece to drukQs as he'd acquired almost a fully programmable orchestra over his hiatus, with tracks like... And Discat 1 was unironically in Better Call Saul. It's slow, it's kind of somber, but it's this artificial type of sadness, like those tearjerker moments in films that are constructed specifically to tear down your emotions, and the new 2 made on the same disc you heard before makes me feel that way. It's a fitting farewell. drukQs chronicles the most experimental Richard has ever been in his career up until that point, and after highs and lows, it's a fitting finale. Specifically, this track is named after Nanu, Richard's girlfriend at the time. 13 years later, on the Syro LP, a similar slow piano ending track was named A Satana. That is reverse for Anastasia, Richard's current wife. drukQs is an experience, a journey, and dare I say it, a masterpiece. As you progress through it, the random sounds begin to feel more organised, and the praise I'm giving it really starts to make sense. Despite dividing fans and critics upon release, with Rolling Stone even giving it a 1-star review and Pitchfork giving it a lackluster 5.8 out of 10, 20 years on, its legacy on electronic music, particularly IDM, makes drukQs an inadvertent magnum opus. Thank you for your attention. Bye.